Hi, I'm Dr. David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. Today, my guest is Dr. Jon Thomas. John is the director of the Epsito Family Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the University of the Fraser Valley, where he also serves as an associate professor in the School of Business. He holds the BC Regional Innovation Chair, and his research focuses on science and technology commercialization. Today, we will discuss the book John co edited, The Symphony of Innovation, Startups, Ecosystem Collaborations, and Risk Capital. The book explores how startups and universities have been crucial for achieving the Indian economy's transition to an innovation led one. John, it's a great pleasure to have you here again. Last time we spoke on how academic scientists and students can successfully transition their research idea into commercial ventures.
It's a delight to be here and to connect with you, David, and happy to share information about my about the book that I have co-edited with colleagues from India, and looking forward to our conversation today.
John, thank you for joining us. Let's start with the heart of the book. The book uses the four movements of the Symphony of Innovation to structure its narrative. What are these movements and what is the key insight they offer about India's innovation economy?
Yes, no, that's a great question, and I should give a lot of the credit for the title to my colleague and co-editor who's more musically inclined. And as we were having our conversation, what he suggested and discussed was that symphonies typically have three to four movements or parts.
Okay.
And these parts have to work together in harmony
Mm,
to be meaningful to
mm,
audiences and to be liked by audiences.
mm,
So from that perspective, when we
mm,
look at the phenomena of
mm,
innovation as it
mm.
happens, not just in India, but broadly across the world,
Yeah.
there are certain components that when they work together, then economies can have positive developments faster and more meaningful for broader sections of society. And one of the more unique aspects of this co-edited book is that we have managed to bring perspectives from a couple of
Mm,
India's political parties and spokespersons from those parties to discuss their views on innovation and
mm,
how they think about supporting startups and economic development. And I think, particularly in the context of India, as well as in other parts of the world,
mm,
this perspective of leaders, so making the distinction between government as the bureaucracy versus or government as political leaders. So it's not necessary that they may have the same perspectives all the time. So trying to bring forth this plurality of perspectives and also share what we as academics and practitioners see in terms of innovation and how it might be a two-way knowledge flow. Us learning from political perspectives
mm.
and hopefully political spokespersons also learning perhaps from some of our perspectives.
I just love the metaphor of symphony, how it's used in in title of your book, and in your book, your book mentioned about the university play a crucial role for achieving innovation. So, how are Indian university, specifically models like the IIT Madras Research Park, bridging the research innovation gap?
Yeah, but so I've been having this collaboration with IIT Madras for a couple of years. In fact, one of the Professor Pillai, who is my collaborator on this book, who was leading all of the work on this book, he had visited us as at the Esposito Family Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, I think in summer of 2023. So in academic time, that's very recent. So he had a recent academic visit, and one of the things that we did when we were conceptualizing, yeah, he had planned to have this conference, and I traveled there for this conference later in December 23, I believe. We had I visited IT Madras Research Park, and and we also had speakers from IIT Madras Research Park and Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala, who has a chapter in the book, who talks about setting up these research parks. So, in terms of how universities contribute to, say, economic development, fundamentally, if you look at economic history, which recently got the Nobel Prize in economics this time around, the universities can be seen as places, locations where ideas are created. It is these ideas which can take the form of technologies, which, if nurtured properly, can transition from universities into society. And in that transition, you connect to economic productivity, where there are old ways of doing things and there are newer, perhaps more efficient ways of doing things. So you can spend perhaps lesser resources to get more work done. All of it to say that over time, the work done in universities and research universities and institutions can impact economic development long term. Now, as in the case of Indian universities, there is a lot of diversity. You will have the institutions like the IITs and the Indian Institutes of Science, and then other sets of institutions like the National Institutes of Technology and others. So there's a gradation to the kind of work that is done, the level of resources that are available. But overall, Indian universities are also increasingly focusing on how can they contribute to the Indian economy primarily in terms of technology development and commercialization.
Interesting. John, your book asks, will ideas follow the money trail or the other way around? How should high-tech entrepreneurs in India view investment?
Yeah, so I will answer this question in sort of thinking about a scientist in a research lab. And one of the challenges that scientists in India and more broadly across the world, scientists face and academic scientists face in research labs is that the choice of the problems that they work on and the kinds of experiments that they choose to run and the kinds of research proposals that they choose to write are many times driven by what is the focus of their discipline, right?
That's true.
It is not necessary that the problem being solved is a problem in society. And there are advantages to both perspectives. So if you're looking at developing new technologies, new to the world technologies, something that hasn't existed ever before, some of that perspective may be useful. But in many, many instances, it is more about application of existing technology, which can be better aligned to solving a real world problem, right? So we live in an agricultural region predominantly. One of the problems that we face in the summers, farmers around us face in the summers, is there are blueberry farms all around us, and it is people have a shortage of getting labor to pick those blueberries. Now, you could have technologies that help us focus on picking those blueberries using certain machines. So there can be image processing research to identify which berries are ripe, which are not, which then connects with mechanisms or robotic hands or fingers that pluck each berry, but doing it at scale and doing it fast enough or faster than humans currently do it, because it is often difficult to solve the labor shortages for local farmers. So I would say that for deep tech entrepreneurs, if they align technology development to a problem in the real world, they will tend to have an easier process raising funding or raising investment.
mm,
It is when there is a disconnect between the problem
mm,
and the solution, or
mm,
when there is a situation where you have a solution, but you don't know which problem you're solving.
mm,
As many scientists and engineers, and I've spoken to scientists and engineers across multiple countries over 20 years now. And so the challenge often is, this is a cool technology that I have developed,
mm.
but I don't know who will use it. So they struggle to answer who that technology is for,
Yeah,
and is it economically viable or not.
yeah,
So I would say that when you focus on solving a
mm,
problem for someone in
mm,
the real world,
mm,
the chances of raising funding
mm,
to get that
mm,
technology from the lab
mm,
to a prototype
mm,
to production to
mm.
sales is easier.
Yeah, I think you raise a very interesting point, that disconnect between the research done in university and what really market need. So definitely it's a big issue, and it needed entirely another hour to just to discuss. John, India is known for its speed in business setup. What structural or cultural elements enable the Indian system to accelerate the approval process?
Yeah, I think India in many parts is top down in
Mm,
terms of decision making.
mm,
So if you get to the right people
mm,
in many states or provinces, and if you have support from the leadership of a state or a region to get things done, uh, many things can move faster. Uh, uh, Canada and many of our nations are take a lot longer in terms of processes and approvals, and there can sometimes be quite a bit of uncertainty. What businesses value and what business people value is more certainty and more clarity around timelines. When you have uncertainty and no uh, clarity on how much time a process is going to take, it can stymie investment, and it can lead us to be less preferred as a
mm,
partner. So it is important for governments at all levels to really understand
mm,
and look at the regulatory framework with a
mm,
perspective of how can we support business. Now, I also offer a caveat there that we also have to see how businesses impact society.
mm,
So it's not business or economic development for its own sake.
mm,
How a business or how a technology impacts society is also important, because in many instances, what might seem as a short-term gain might at times be much, uh, so it might be a loss in the longer term. So one does have to have regulations,
yeah,
but I'm sure that there are ways
yeah,
to speed up processes as
yeah.
other countries do.
Yeah. And I think you raise important point, and definitely it's a concern. And I think point you raise is that, to speed up in a setup, is that all stakeholders, governments, and all type of stakeholders should come together and really accelerate the process, and give some certainty to the business plan and the business setup. So very good point. Your book suggests, uh, John, you suggest that India can learn from Canada on commercializing basic research. Could you give an example of a Canadian framework in converting basic research into commercialized idea that India could benefit from adopting?
Yeah, so here I will give the example of a company that we studied, a company called Abcelera from the Lower Mainland.
Mm,
We published a paper about it, and what I will say here is that Abcelera's origins are from an academic research lab at UBC, and we tracked the research done there for many years, and tracked how that idea evolved and when that venture was formed. All of it to say that when you look, especially for science innovation and science-based ideas, you often find that it is governments or patient investors who are supporting basic research over long periods of time. And then once that research leads to some commercializable output, that is when there is more interested from private sector parties. And so we see a similar sort of uh, investment and play out in the case of Accelera. We see the timeline that it took for conversion of their idea and their work on one of the world's first uh, COVID-19 therapeutics
mm,
from the Lower Mainland. So that is an example of basic research done at a lab in Vancouver,
mm,
and how that was combined with research done in other parts of the world and combined with the manufacturing capabilities of a large multinational pharmaceutical company,
mm,
all of it done in record time in the pharmaceutical
mm,
sector,
mm,
where it typically takes 10 to 15 years to get a technology to market, if you're successful, if everything aligns, and how academic research was converted into helping people who had already contracted COVID-19 and helping them with therapeutics to address some of their problems. So that is an example, a local example, I would say, of research benefiting society when all of us didn't know when the world would reopen. We knew in February, March 2020 when everything shut down, and no government, no one could give an estimate of the time. Are we going to be closed for 6 months, or is it a year, or is it 2 years? So in that kind of uncertainty, it is science and science innovation that helped us come out of a pandemic.
John, as the BC Regional Innovation Chair, first of all, what is the role of BC Regional Innovation Chair before I ask my question?
Yeah. So I would say that the BC Regional Innovation Chair Program, funded by the Government of British Columbia, as well as in this case supported by the community in the Fraser Valley,
Mm.
is a research chair. So the BC Regional Innovation Chairs are research chairs.
So, as the chair, what is the greatest reciprocal opportunity for Canadian entities to engage with the Indian innovation ecosystem?
Yeah. So again, I will connect it to the regulatory processes
Mm,
that we have. And what we find in many instances is when we are developing technologies out of labs, scientists and engineers are often looking at Canada as the first market,
mm,
or BC as the first market, because we are located in British Columbia.
mm,
It is quite possible that markets outside Canada might move faster in terms of adopting our technology, because uh, they have a faster speed to adoption.
mm,
And so I personally know instances where the first clients or customers of Canadian tech companies, a couple of Canadian tech companies, those first clients are not in Canada, but outside Canada.
mm,
So in terms of my own sort of feedback to many Canadian technology ventures is, of course, focus on Canadian markets. Do focus on Canadian markets, but don't only focus on Canadian markets. Because if you wait just to get your client from inside Canada, it is possible it might take you a couple of years. And you may not have the funding to sustain for the first couple of years without funding, without external client generating revenue. So keep an eye on markets outside. And that is where the Indian innovation ecosystem comes into play. It's a much larger market. It is a much faster market. And the kind of questions you get asked around your technology, because the focus is always on being extremely cost competitive.
Mm,
If you can offer quality at low cost, and can crack the Indian market,
mm,
you will find that in many instances you will generate significant revenues. In fact, there are some South Korean companies
mhm,
who now generate more revenues from India than from South Korea.
mm, mm,
So you can have a huge markets and collaborations or international
mm.
collaborations informing your revenue generation when you are working with large markets like India.
For sure, it's a great advice. Like India is a huge market and a huge opportunity exists there. Thank you for this great advice. Finally, John, who should read the Symphony of Innovation?
Yeah, the book is written in a very accessible style, so I wouldn't characterize it as being very sort of research
Academic.
intense. That said, I think it allows the writing style as well as the nature of the contributions are very much oriented towards practitioners, towards policymakers, towards technology transfer office managers, towards university administrators who want to understand how can my university do better? And
Mm,
of course, local entrepreneurs to see these perspectives on how perhaps to partner with large companies. So it addresses a range of questions, which looking at it from the perspectives of startups, as well as policymakers. Of course, researchers also benefit from all of these perspectives in learning the how the real world aligns and take some of these ideas forward and hopefully come up with new and more meaningful research questions.
John, congratulations again on the book Symphony of Innovation. And thank you so much for taking the time to share your insight today. Best wishes.
Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me, and it's always a pleasure to be in conversation with you.